Hey everyone, welcome to the latest installment of MSP Business School. And once again, it's just me and Tim.
Yeah,
This is starting to become a regular thing, Tim. I don't know, man. Maybe we
right.
don't need Rob.
Yeah, I don't know. I think he may have been a figment all this time, but we just made him up. He was a hologram.
Well, as we mentioned, I think in our previous episode, Rob has taken a long and well-deserved break. Tim may disagree with me on the concept of how long it might be, but but we're excited and we'll get him refreshed and back here next episode. Yeah. But today, what we're really going to focus on is, the concept of risk-based selling. So, Tim, I always looked at, this is a hot topic I'm seeing in a lot of webinars, a lot of conferences, but it's something that I've always believed in since day one. But there's a key to doing risk-based selling where it's not just leaning on fear, uncertainty, and doubt and the scare factor. And, if used effectively, it can really be a tool to remove some of the sales friction out there and really drive sales in a very easy manner that the customer actually likes to partake in. I don't know what your thoughts have been or, how you're seeing things go, but, definitely different than the feature benefit conversations that still too many reps follow.
So it's funny. We've talked a lot internally around how the whole feel, felt, found, and how the feature transition benefit, we've talked a lot internally over the last few months about how maybe in some industries that still works, but in this industry, that seems to be where a lot of people are still focusing, which puts you in that commodity play, which we've talked about many times.
Yep.
In regards to the risk-based selling and everything you just talked about, we've made a huge push recently on how to really speak to a prospect more around how can you accomplish their business goals through your technology.
Yep.
And I think that's where the consultative selling comes into play. And you talk about the FUD or the fear, uncertainty, doubt. It's not, you're not trying to create the fear, you're just trying to create a realistic picture.
And you can't praise on, man. That's a fact.
Yeah, it just is.
So, people look at it in two different ways, right? Fear, uncertainty, and doubt, the customer can feel that. But if you're painting a picture and helping them understand, in some sort of manner that they can really understand and quantify what that risk really could mean to their business and what those costs may be down the line, you're definitely going to help yourself in the long run in better understanding or getting the customer to better understand what you're trying to position as the solution at that standpoint. And that's really what this is about. It's truly taking that solutions-based model and helping the customer understand it. And, when it comes to risk, there's three types of risks that customers face. There's operational, financial, and in some cases, regulatory risk. Yeah. And that's the way a CFO is looking at risk. That's the way a chief operating officer is looking at risk. So, we tend to dive down in the weeds specifically around IT risk and what technical risk looks like. But, when a company's looking at risk, they're trying to think, what are the factors that can scuttle my business? Yeah. What are the factors that can cause us harm? What are the factors that might cause us to have to let go of human capital and really change the way we operate? So, with that, I think you can see very quickly that cyber risk comes into play really in all three of those areas. But if you start thinking about how risk is viewed by your customer and really look at those three factors, again, they were financial, operational, and regulatory, you can start having consultative conversations during the selling process where you're really talking their language, but backing it up with the problems that we see in our language. Yeah. And that's really a big part of it. And, I've always felt the more you understand your customer and where they're coming from, the more successful you're going to be positioning anything, because now you can take off that stigma of it being a true, hey, he's trying to sell me something, into, hey, I'm understanding you got this problem. This impacts this in your business. And then this is what we can do to solve it. It's why we're big fans of strategic planning and joint strategic planning here at the CIO Toolbox, because you need to know those things.
Well, and not only that, I mean, everything you just said is a great example of, it's actually, oddly enough, something that I focused on a presentation that we did this week. And that's, and that's looking at your client tech, when you're as an MSP, you should be looking at your client tech. And if you're going into, we'll just pick on high-end manufacturing. If you've got a segment of manufacturing clients that you work with, whether you know it or not, you're probably a loose expert in some way, shape, or form, or you understand that industry, and you can go in and create stories around some of the hero things that you've done with your other clients, and immediately gain credibility with your somebody that you're doing a QBR with, and say, hey, we did this with XYZ company, and this is how the results worked out. This is what we want to do with you. And we've got the experience that we can prove to you that this is not only the right thing to do, but you kind of have to do it right now. So it's just painting that picture with stories that we push quite often.
Yeah. And then, another tool sets that are out there to really help you understand risk is really some of the frameworks that are out there in the marketplace today. So when you look at some of the cyber frameworks, think about your NIST CSF, your CIS 18, your CMMC 2.0. These are really risk-based tools that allow you to go in there and evaluate where the cyber risk lives for a customer, and then look at the policies that sit behind that, and then drive new ultimately you're driving a plan of action for the customer. These are the steps you're going to have to take to satisfy it. But ultimately that plan of action does translate into a pipeline of sorts. It's a roadmap for the customer. It's a pipeline for you. And the beauty of these frameworks is they're customized to be, while they can tie, some of the frameworks do tie to regulations. Think of things like the NIST 800-171, or out in the UK, IASME Cyber Essentials, as risk-based frameworks. The reality is they're meant to look at things that are real to a company. So I'm going to use the CIS 18 just kind of as the example here of how you can conduct a simple risk-based assessment for your customer to drive some of the opportunity and to get into a deeper conversation. The CIS, as many folks listening know, has 3 implementation groups. And these implementation groups are really sized to deal with the types of companies that are out there in the marketplace. Implementation group number 1 is where the majority of MSP customers sit. These are customers that are up to about 250 people in their employ. They generally don't have a security team, oftentimes not an IT team, so they're reaching outward for those services. Mm-hmm. And the threat is really non-targeted attacks. These are the bots that go out and do port scanning and look for open areas to do it, and then they'll drop something in just randomly because you were there, but certainly not targeting you for any specific reason. And, really what it does is it kind of looks at your cyber hygiene, and there's 56 standards that sit behind it that you can assess and really build a risk profile from a cyber perspective for your customer that helps them see where their gaps are to protect them against the things most likely to occur in their lives. And that's where I'm seeing a lot of my customers doing, starting the risk conversation, because it's pretty straightforward, pretty easy for them to go through. Certainly as you graduate up as a larger organization, you'll move into enterprise 2 or implementation group 2 and 3, but we'll save that for another conversation. But really take this IG3 framework and take those results and sit with your customer and go, hey, here's where we found the gaps. Yeah. These are the steps you can take to take care of it. And if you're doing a strategic plan with them, hey, this is how it ties back to satisfying what your business needs to conduct. But while you're having that conversation too, your customer might choose to accept some of that risk. And now you can document that accepted risk as an MSP and have that customer document with you. It's also, we're talking sales today, but also to protect yourself should something ever happen, a breach occur and you get litigation. But the biggest thing in that conversation is you're understanding the risk. You're showing them where the risk is based on a standards assessment. You're showing them what they can do. And again, hopefully tying it back to some sort of initiative plan that you've got to show the customer so they understand the why, and more than the why, because we get the why kind of through the risk process, but the how it's going to benefit the business. And now they can make an informed decision. And guess what? You just stopped selling. You just were consulting.
Yeah. So part of what I heard there is, I know you said gap analysis, but hey, it's almost like a white space. You can go in and see what they have, what they need, and talk about the risk around each one. And to your point, I love the idea of educating a client or prospect on where they are, where they need to be, and kind of forcing them to acknowledge, hey, we understand that we're going to take this level of risk, and we know that that part's going to be on us, but we do, we're comfortable doing this, that, and the other thing. We're going to hold off on this segment right now. I think that's fantastic.
Well, you're spot on in that it's very similar to white space, and it definitely brings in, you're going to look at your white space analysis and be able to tie those items to risk. But the second part is, and this is where it gets that consultative piece really going, you're going to identify things that the company needs to do for themselves, not you doing for them.
Yeah.
So now you're giving them kind of, I wouldn't call it the free advice, because we're all doing this for some sort of fee in some way, shape, or form. But what you're doing is providing that tier of leadership in the process too. And for your sales team, that's critical, right? Because your sales team struggles with, first, they're the sales guy. Second, they're usually not the most technically knowledgeable in your organization, versus others, although many, good sales reps really do understand the technology. But third, you're giving them tools to enhance how they present to their customer. And now you're giving them the opportunity to rise up from just being kind of that salesperson to that true evolved partner that they require, and really occupying, I talk about this a lot, occupying like that CIO seat that's vacant at the client. And, elevating your company from an operational partner and a sales partner into into that advisory role. I hate the word trusted advisor, so I'm not going there. But
that again, that kind of ties back to what I was saying before about how, we just believe, whether you're a salesperson or owner, we believe very strongly in painting a picture where you can help them with their business needs through your technology, right? Or through your experience, through your technology stack. And in this case, it's more through your experience, less about the technology, but it's also helping them accomplish their business goals that are critical for them keeping the doors open.
And, one of the things to think about too is where this opportunity sits for the MSP sales teams too. We're obviously, when you start having a risk-based conversation, it goes beyond just, some of the cyber risk. Privacy is becoming a big part of the conversation. Already was in states like California, New York, and even Connecticut just recently passed some legislation. But there's now national mandates, the American Data Privacy and Protection Act, that's on the table. It's passed Congress and it's now on the House floor. And what, this really adds kind of, we talked about, risk being operational, financial, and regulatory. This definitely falls into the regulatory bucket, but it's also extending out beyond just cyber and getting into that protection of people's data. So now you're getting into the social engineering, you're getting into the internal controls part of it. And these are all great conversations that, whether you do them directly as the MSP or provide a platform like the Breach Secures and the KnowBe4s out there, for awareness, what you're really doing is giving the customer more information, helping them understand where their gaps are. This policy is going to come out. You think anybody at your small to mid-sized customer has been really following the American Data Privacy and Protection Act progress in there? Probably not, but we should be.
I'm going to go with no.
These are some great, from my seat, it's just some great ways to really start engaging your customer, elevating your conversation with them. And the biggest part is start stealth selling, man. That's, I looked throughout my career and it was all about getting to know the customer, building a relationship, that was both personal and business, in some respects. I mean, obviously more business than personal in most cases, but understanding a little bit about them, and then coming in there and always looking to find more. When I used to call my customers, because this was something that sales reps struggled with too, how do I stay connected with them? I got nothing new to say.
Yeah.
I would just call them up and go, hey, or send them an email, to get the conversation started so you can call them up and follow up on it. I'd send an email with some tidbit of information like the American Data Privacy and Protection Act and go, hey, just wanted to send you this. I'm sure you're aware of it already, but if you haven't been following this is going to be something that's going to, potentially be nationwide and something you might not need to concern yourself about. If it's not, hey, please disregard, but I'll give you a buzz in a week just to check in. And, now I'm checking in and going, hey, do you have any questions about that? Can I get, if you do, let me see if I can wrangle somebody to talk to you about it. These are little things you can bring up to your customer. So now you're making a call, no dollar sign on your forehead.
Yeah.
And but you are extending the sales process at the
Yeah,
same
you
time,
are.
because while you're giving
100%.
that valued information, it's going to lead to something else down the pike. It's a game of chess, man, not checkers.
Exactly. Well, yeah. And to that point, the amount of salespeople that we manage that historically, this is true with anybody. What's the why to make the next call, right? People, we have salespeople that we manage that really struggle with that. So just doing something as simple as finding an article or a link and sending it out by email on this topic or any other topic that pertains to what you're focused on is it's a great way to just keep the ball moving forward.
I mean, let's face it, social media has made it easy.
Go
through your news feed, you're going to find some article that might be interesting that you could share to your customer that they might not be aware of. Just because you see 15 articles in a row about cybersecurity and threats in your news feed doesn't mean your customer is, because they're not following the same types of people you are.
Yeah. And that right there, I think, is what people they just forget that. They just forget it because it's in their face all day, every day. They just assume everybody's seeing it, but that's not always the case.
And I loved your term earlier about being a loose expert also, because the reality is you don't have to be the expert on all this. One of your jobs as the sales rep is to be the quarterback for the account, right? So, bring it to their attention. If they want more, that's great. Set up the call and get somebody else in there with you. I mean, the best answer you can say to them is, I don't know enough about it. I just know this matters. If you want to get more, hey, we're doing this webinar, or hey, I can get this on a call, whatever the next step might be.
Yeah. And we're seeing more and more MSPs do that. And it's something, even going back to when Rob and I were still in the industry, we used to do that. We had segments of clients within law firms, dentists, and nonprofits, and there were a lot of similar supporting softwares behind those industries, and we didn't know the software in and out, but we knew it enough to be able to be that quarterback to help our clients understand what they were getting and if it fits in with an overall strategy of what we were providing them. And that translates specifically to what we're talking about right now.
Yep. And I think, others may feel differently, but if you want to get rid of sales friction and you want to move things along quicker, the keys are give them the why, and the why better tie back to what they care about, not what you care about. The second thing is, making sure they understand where where the risk lives in their organization, so they can assess if it's something that they want to accept. And then ultimately, we have a job as MSPs to, again, fill that leadership void and provide them the information they need. If we are just simply selling products, refreshing things that are going, that are getting refreshed, driving certain things to the cloud because we know that's where we think they should be going, and we're not conversing with our customer to understand enough what they're trying to achieve, we're not doing them a total service. And we are kind of obligated to educate, I think, as part of our process here in the industry. It's part of our role. If we want to say things like we're VCIO, VCIO, while it has morphed into a sales position of sorts, it was virtual chief information officer. Chief information officers, they are selling too. Don't kid yourself. They're selling internally all day against budget constraints, and they're selling all day against results. But how are they doing it? With facts, with supporting detail, and with the why in mind. So I think that's bringing us about to the end of our time today, Tim.
Okay. All right. Well, that was a quick one. That was a fast one, but it was good. But
hit the point, and let's move on, right? There's only so much of us people can take. Well,
look, we could do another 25 minutes on a white space. I mean, we can crush that thing.
Yep, we could. But with that, you want to take us home, or you want me to do it today, Tim?
I'll take it.
Right.
So look, this podcast, just like any other one that we do, is available at any of the platforms that you can subscribe to a podcast, to include YouTube, where if you want to see our beautiful faces, have at it. This will be going out with probably a link or two on some of the things that we referenced today, and like always, just appreciate being on.
And, for those of you that are big Rob fans, do not fear. He'll be back next week. But if you're not a Rob fan, we'd love you to drop that in the comments on YouTube and let me and Tim know.
Yeah.
But with that, we wish you all a great week. And we look forward to talking to you again next week.
Yeah. All right. See you soon.